Hello, my dear students. In the syllabus of BA Honours English Part 2 of TM Bhagalpur University, students are required to study Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Pride and Prejudice is one of the most popular novels in the whole of English literature. This novel was written by Jane Austen in 1811. Jane Austen is regarded as the inaugurator of the great tradition of English novel. I am quoting the words of F.R. Lewis, the famous distinguished critic in the University of Cambridge. Jane Austen was born in 1775 and she died in 1816. She had a very brief stint in this world. She lived in this world only for 41 years. But within this short period, she wrote 6 immortal novels. Northanger Abbey was her first novel, Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, Persuasion, and Emma. These are some of the very outstanding, very well-known novels written by this great writer of English novel. If we examine all these 6 novels, we find some common features. Jane Austen, she lived in a small village in southern part of England, and she got her school education because she could not go to university for her higher education, and she wrote only on those things with which she was herself very acquainted. Generally, a charge is leveled against Jane Austen that her novels suffer from very limited view. Jane Austen, in all her novels, has touched upon the theme of marriage, love and marriage. And that is why there are many critics who say that Jane Austen deliberately did not write about some very momentous events taking place in her times. The French Revolution happened in 1789. England was passing through this industrial revolution, and American War of Independence took place in 1776. So, many earth-shaking, epoch-making events were taking place in England and also the continent of Europe. But Jane Austen deliberately bypassed those very momentous events, and she thought it proper to write only on those things with which she had got this first-hand experience. In the examination, this question is set the significance of the title, and today I am going to examine the significance of the title Pride and Prejudice, and then I am also going to discuss some of the important features of this great novel. Title occupies a very important place for any literary creation. It almost serves as a board, this signboard. So the title Pride and Prejudice is also very, very significant. Jane Austen wrote this novel in 1796, but this novel could not be published, and it was ultimately published in 1811. During this great interregnum, Jane Austen changed the title. When this novel was written in 1796, the original title was First Impressions. First Impression. This title was also inspired by Fanny Burney's novel Cecilia. But Jane Austen, at the time of publication in 1811, changed its title to Pride and Prejudice. The title is very significant. Two very literary words are used, pride and prejudice. Pride here stands for the so called pride on the part of Fitzwilliam Darcy, the leading male character, the hero of this novel. And as a reaction to his pride, the leading female character, Elizabeth Bennet, gets prejudiced. So, this is all about this novel. Uh, the title is very, very appropriate. Had this title been the first impression, then the justice could not have been done. First impression is generally said to be the last impression. But in this novel, we find that the first impression uh, does not happen to be the last impression. In the ball party, in the chapter 3 of this novel, uh, when Fitzwilliam Darcy comes into contact with, come face to face with Elizabeth Bennet, then uh, uh, this he fails to create any favorable impression. He uses some words which are not liked by Elizabeth Bennet, and we find that this meeting ends on a note of misunderstanding and misgiving. Elizabeth Bennet feels that this young handsome man, seems to be very much arrogant and very conscious of his social status, and he looks down upon my family. And as a reaction to this kind of perception, Elizabeth Bennet gets prejudiced. Uh, Jane Austen, Fitzwilliam Darcy takes a lot of pains to remove this kind of misunderstanding in the mind of Elizabeth Bennet. First, he helps the family of Elizabeth Bennet in tracing about the whereabouts of Lydia, who elopes with a character Wickham. So this goes a long way in removing this cloud of misunderstanding. And he also writes a letter where he makes all kinds of clarifications. So as a result of all his painstaking efforts, Elizabeth Bennet feels that her first impression was not appropriate, and she repents and she realizes her mistake. And towards the end of this novel, we find that she changes her view about this man, and ultimately she consents to marry Fitzwilliam Darcy. So this novel has got a happy ending. In this lecture, I am also going to give you some idea about the features of this novel. The theme of this novel is love and marriage. The love treated in this novel is not a platonic love or the love at first sight, which we generally witness in the comedies of William Shakespeare. Here, Jane Austen never liked romantic love. She was not a romantic writer, she was a classical writer. And according to her, those who have got a romantic view of life are fools. So here we find that the characters fall in love not at first sight, but they pass through many trials and tribulations, many phases, and when the characters are convinced about the passionate love of each other, then they marry. So Jane Austen had got such a view of this love and marriage. Another important feature of this novel is the use of irony. Irony, this figure of speech, has been very beautifully used throughout this novel. And we find that what is an irony? Irony is the difference between the appearance and the reality. What you see and what is the truth, the difference between these two terms gives rise to irony. This novel starts with these words: "It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in pursuit of uh, wife, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in pursuit of uh, uh, in possession of wealth, uh, in in possession of wealth, uh, is in search of wife. So I am not exactly I am quoting the lines, but this opening lines are full of the use of irony, and here we find that this throughout the novel, what we see and what happens are completely different from each other. This novel has described the upper middle class society, the class of ladies and gentlemen, and this novel also describes how this society lays emphasis upon the manners. So, if there is anything uh, uh, different, anything which is incompatible with the manners, then it is just brought to ridicule. So this novel also describes the class stratification, the class consciousness in the novel. The characters, before deciding to marry, are very much conscious of the social status and this and the wealth. So these are some of the very important considerations before deciding to marry. So on the whole, we find that this is a very beautiful novel. Uh, this is a novel dominated by women, and women's views have been described here. The whole world has been seen through the eyes of women, and that is why this novel is one of the very most popular novels in the entire English literature. Thank you.